Hey, it's your fellow revolutionary, Jason Vreeke, and these are Tales of the Revolution. We tell stories to encourage encounters with the real Jesus of Nazareth, who came to change your life, to make those who are dead alive. This episode will be the first in a series of episodes concerning deception. I'm calling this one Crucial Deception. Our first storyteller is Matt Slyman, also known as Crucial. He is a hip-hop artist and producer based in North Carolina's Charlotte area. His story is nothing less than revolutionary.
My name is Matthew Slyman, aka Crucial. Crucial is my stage name. I am a hip-hop, Christian-based rap artist. Been working in the Christian music industry on a more professional level for roughly 12, 13 years now. That entails a lot, and I've been very blessed to have been able to, do a good little bit of traveling and speaking and concerts, varying from youth functions, youth rallies, conferences, festivals, block parties, even, prisons and retreats, urban outreaches, and you name it. Very blessed to have been a part of a lot of those types of events over the years, and to be able to take the musical gifts and talents that the Lord has given me to give glory to Him, honor Him with my life and with those gifts and those talents. And from a musical standpoint, I've always been involved with music, even since I was a little kid. I started out playing the piano. I learned how to play the piano at a very early age. I started composing my own piano music when I was 10, 11 years old. I took up other various instruments, from clarinet, saxophone, bass guitar, electric guitar. I've just always really enjoyed music, various genres and styles of music. Hip-hop is just, rap music is one of those things that I feel like you can incorporate all kinds of different genres and styles into. But again, just to get back to the main point of that, I noticed at a very young age that music was something, a talent that God had given me. But I didn't really start using it to glorify Him until my adult life. And just to kind of give you the long and short with my childhood, I feel like I've always known the Lord. I prayed even as a small child. I went to church. Family, we went to church every Sunday, and, I learned all the basic stories in Sunday school, about Noah's Ark and Jonah and the whale, and learned about this man they call Jesus. But I didn't really form a deep, intimate relationship with Him. And I guess you can say that the veil was not really lifted over my eyes until, I was about the age of 21, 22 years old. And as a child, I was a very awkward young man. I was very small, pasty white kid, scrawny kid, and I got picked on a lot. I was a sensitive kid. I faced a lot of rejection in my younger years. And a lot of that played into, some of the insecurities that I ended up having as I got into my teenage years. The downward spiral in my life, I guess you can say, started probably about a year or two after my parents had separated. And they had gotten a divorce. My mother had left my father. Thank God she just moved a couple miles away, so they stayed in the same town, and we were able to see them both. We stayed in my mom's house half the time, my dad's house half the time, but, I started using, playing that to my advantage and trying to work my parents against each other. And, I just started to kind of act out in certain ways. I guess you can couple the fact that, my parents were divorced now, and, I had faced a lot of rejection growing up, and I still, I had a couple friends here and there, but, really, I wasn't the, Mr. Popular. I would get, bullied from time to time, but I would lash out too. I didn't let people bully me too much. I ended up in school suspension several times for, trying to fight people, and, but as I became, about 15, 16 years old, I was in the, periodically smoking cigarettes and started getting into a little bit of alcohol. And then, my senior year, I actually joined a rock group with several guys. I'm from Lexington, North Carolina, and a lot of these guys were from Lexington, North Carolina, but they were in college, but they would come home on the weekends. One of them was going to Carolina, Chapel Hill. Another couple of them were going to NC State. One of them was going to Lenore Ryan and Hickory. They would come home. They found out that I knew how to play bass guitar, so I became their bassist. And here I was, a senior in high school, and I started to, that kind of started to give me a little bit more confidence in myself. But, I was joining these guys on the weekends, and I'd go to some of these college campuses on the weekends, and we would play at some of these frat houses, at these frat parties. There were some weekends, I would be able to get in the bars because I was with the band and I was playing with the band. And so just my partying lifestyle started to increase. Well, by the time I graduated high school, I ended up attending the local community college for a couple of years. And when I got into the community college, a lot of people liked me and accepted me, and you're no longer around the cliquish people that you're around all through elementary school and middle school and high school. So a lot of people don't really know who you are. I found out that I was a pretty likable guy. But I kind of still was leaning towards the more negative crowds because I was, I was already in this rock group and I was already doing some things I shouldn't be doing. And so in college, I started, getting into drugs. I started getting into smoking weed and popping pills. And then that led, of course, marijuana is a huge gateway to other drugs. I started experimenting with hallucinogenics, acid, mushrooms. I would experiment with a little cocaine from time to time, and eventually got into doing ecstasy. And it just started, things just started to get crazy. My life was spiraling out of control very quickly. And by my third year of college, I had transferred to Guilford Tech. It's a technical community college. I was in their Jamestown campus, and I was renting a room from a guy in the High Point, Greensboro area. But I just stopped caring about a lot of things. I even I left the band, kind of mutual at that point. I think they didn't want me anymore. I didn't want to be in there anymore. I was into just girls and partying and sexual relationships with multiple women at this point, and I really couldn't even hold down a job. I just wanted to play all day long. No work, all play. Just wanted to party all day, smoke weed all day, drive around, and, find trouble to get into. And so I lived that lifestyle pretty heavily from, roughly around 18 years old to probably about 22 years old. Probably about 4 years there that my life was just taking an awful turn. And by the time I was even 21 years old, I was breaking into places. I was, because I didn't have a job. I couldn't hold down a job. So if I needed money for drugs, I was robbing people. I was breaking and entering into, homes and, even like using a credit card to get into somebody's house and finding money or finding merchandise that I could take and pot off the streets and go get more drugs. And I was lying, deceiving, manipulating. Even the circles that I was running in, more and more were wanting to have less and less to do with me. And, so I was in a bad place. And I remember, I would talk to my dad every now and then. I would call home. I was living with a girl at the time, and I would call home from every now and then. And my dad, I'd talk to him, and again, he knew what I was doing, but he would just tell me, he'd say, "Son, I'm praying for you. I just want you to know that there's a lot of people praying for you, people you don't even know. People in other cities and states that you've never even met are praying for you." And I remember one day I got off the phone with him, and I heard him saying that to me, and I went outside, and I went on a walk. It was a very beautiful day outside. I remember just blue skies, a couple little white puffy clouds up in the sky. I was smoking a cigarette, walking down the street, just thinking about my life and how bad things have gotten. And I remember looking up and saying, Lord, if you're really there, if you really exist, if all these prayers that all these people are praying, if you really hear them, then I want you to hear my prayer, and I want you to prove it to me. I want you to reveal yourself to me. God, if you're really there. And at the time, I didn't even know. I didn't even know if I was talking to God or if there was a God listening. But I just called out to him, and I was very sincere about it. I said, I want to see. I want to see. I'm sick of my life. I'm sick of how I'm living. I want you to turn this ship around. I'm ready. I'm ready to grow up and to get my life moving in a better direction. I don't want to live like this anymore. So that was when I was about 21. Well, the changes that started to take place in my life were almost immediate. They really were. And all through that next year, first of all, within weeks of that prayer, I was able to land a very good job. That's a whole other story about that job that I got, because you had people who had graduated from college. People were applying for this job all over in multiple cities from all around. And the positions were limited. It was paying very well. I never finished college. And how I got that job, that's just a whole other story in itself. But I got a very good job. And I actually started cleaning up my act a little bit. Now, I was still doing drugs. I was still partying and stuff. I was still, having sexual interactions with other women and whatnot. But I was still at the same time praying. And I could see the Lord making changes in my life. And I became a lot more honest in my dealings with people. I learned the gift of hard work and what it meant to be a real man and to discipline myself, and work a steady job and start paying for my own stuff. So at this point now, I'm living and working in Winston-Salem, and all throughout that year, I had been talking to God. But I still wasn't sold on this Jesus guy. Again, I remember learning about him growing up, but I thought maybe there's more than one path to God. Maybe it doesn't matter if you're a Buddhist or if you're, this or that. Maybe all God really cares is that you just believe in him some way, and that you just have faith in him some way. And I would get in conversations with my dad throughout the year, and he would try to challenge me. He would say, well, no, Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes unto me or unto the Father except through me. And so, he was planting seeds of faith in my life, challenging me with scriptures and here and there throughout that following year. But I was still, I was not there yet. Well, while I was living and working in Winston-Salem, I had become very good friends with a pretty big weed dealer. He was this big guy, lived in the hood, right there in the ghetto in Winston-Salem. And a lot of people came and bought, weed from him and various other drugs from time to time. I called him Pratt Dog. That was kind of his nickname. Like we call him Pratt Dog. And so Pratt Dog, he was this, like I said, he's this big guy, and we became friends. Here I am, this, scrawny white guy, and then this guy, I'm hanging out with him at his crib in the ghetto, and people are coming in from time to time, and they're, you got these people walking in, real shady, dark looking figures, with their hoodies on, and they're coming in and they're pulling guns out of their waist and putting them on the table to sit down and do deals with him. And I'm just sitting there, high, just watching TV, just trying to mind my own business while they're taking care of business. And, and then these guys get up, they tuck their guns back in their pants, they walk out. And, me and Pratt Dog were just sitting there hanging out. And, he and I would get in conversations about the Lord. And he would tell me, I remember he would tell me, he'd be like, Matt, I used to mess people up, man. I used to put people in the hospital, he's like, I don't do that anymore. As though like he was telling me how the Lord was working in his life. But here he was. I mean, he's still a big dealer. And, one night I had a connection with this guy in High Point who had come down from New York City, I believe, with a shipment of ecstasy pills, and he said he could get us a big chunk of them for about $10 a pill. Well, back then, I don't know what it is now, but back then, ecstasy was about $25, $30 a pill. So somebody tells you they're going to give you some X pills for $10 a pill, well, you're going to go do it. So I told Pratt Dog about it. We jumped in my car. We drove down to High Point. We met with this guy. We bought a little shipment off of him. We drove back to his house. And then I took a pill, and he took a couple pills, and I said, let me back up. He kind of wanted to spend some time with his girl that night. I said, all right, well, I guess I'm going to go hang out by myself and head back to my apartment. So before I left, I said, he had this huge movie collection, and I said, you mind if I borrow one of these movies? And he said, sure, yeah, go ahead. And he pointed on top. He actually had one out that he had been watching. It was sitting on top of his big screen TV. And he said, that one right there is a good one. And I looked at it, and it was a 2-disc set, a 4-hour movie, 3 or 4 hour movie. It was called Jesus of Nazareth. And I said, all right, sure, why not? So I grabbed the movie, Jesus of Nazareth. I went home. I was on ecstasy, watching Jesus of Nazareth by myself in my living room. I watched it till it was probably like midnight, probably 1 o'clock in the morning, maybe, I don't know. By the time the movie was over, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm still high as a kite, but there was something in that story, his walk and the things that he spoke to people, the parables and and what led up to his crucifixion. And then, when he died on that cross and he bled out, and then he, was risen from the dead 3 days later, and how he walked with these guys again and just explained everything that happened. And it just clicked with me. It just clicked with me. And I don't like to tell people this story because I feel like people will judge and say, oh, well, yeah, you were high. You were on ecstasy. Of course. Yeah, of course you saw something. Your mind was playing tricks on you. But no, it wasn't even that. The drugs aside, just the story itself and about my depravity, my complete depravity, my sin nature, just being the fallen creature that I am, and just seeing how I could have never done what he did, and how I needed him. I needed him to do what he did. It just all completely clicked that he had to do what he did. He had to. Mankind had no other way. There was no other way within ourselves that we were going to be able to have this restored, redemptive relationship with the holy, perfect, living God. Jesus had to do what he did. And it just clicked with me. And all these scriptures that my dad had challenged me with and that I had read, and up to this point, everything just all started to make sense. And it all just, even the next morning, I woke up. And I remember as those next few days and the next few weeks went on, like everything looked different. And now I'm totally sober, but just everything was different. And I started to even, I'd see things on TV or other movies and shows, and I started to see the deceptions laced throughout, humanity and how the interactions with people. And I just saw life in a totally different way. And I think about that song, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound, and it gets to that part, it says, was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. I remember hearing that song weeks after that experience with the Lord, and it just clicked with me. For the first time ever, I really knew what it was like to really see. I always used to identify and think that they were talking about it was a physical blindness, and now I can physically see, but no, there was something going on in the spirit realm to where the veil was lifted from my darkened eyes, and I could now see the truth in just all things. And the Word of God became alive to me, and I would read it, and it was like it was speaking directly to me. And I'm telling you, man, I don't know why the Lord would save a wretch like me, but he did. And he exposed himself to me. And even in my darkest hours, when I'm carelessly living my life, messed up and on drugs, even in that time, he would speak to me. But it just proves his love. It shows that, he doesn't care. He doesn't care who you are. He doesn't care what you've done. He will meet you where you're at. And that's how that is the time when I began walking with the Lord. And I'll tell you, I wasn't just delivered from drugs all in that moment. I mean, there were times where I still slipped up, and it took me probably about 2 or 3 years into my faith walk from that point to completely get rid of that kind of a lifestyle. I tripped and stumbled a lot, but I knew what the truth was. I knew what he wanted for me. I knew he wanted a better life for me, and that his love for me was just unconditional, and that he was going to just be there with me and walk with me all the way through it. And he did. And even to this day, you continue to go on through your life, and you feel like you've reached one point with the Lord, and then all of a sudden he peels back more layers and you see more dirt, and just continue to realize your need for him. That's how I came to know the Lord, and I'm very grateful for that experience with him.
So, whatever happened to Pratt Dog?
I kept up with him from time to time, and I do, the last time I had seen him, as far as I know, he had gotten very much out of the lifestyle that he was in as well, and I think he was in the middle of trying to start his own towing business. He wanted to open up a towing service, and he had gotten a trailer and everything, so we lost connection, but I really feel like he was moving in the same direction I was. If I had to put my money on it, I'd say that I'll bet he's living completely 100% for the Lord now.
Big thanks to Matt Crucial Slyman. To learn more about him, check out his website, crucialbeats.com. There you can also learn more about him and the work he does in music and ministry. You can even land yourself a free download of the album, The End of the World. I had a chance to have a conversation with my double brother. If you don't remember him, check out episode 1 when you have a chance. But he was one who was subjected to some severe deception, and he's going to talk about it right now.
Just that feeling you get when you are in one accord with believers, worshiping the Lord, how that fulfilled purpose, that feeling you get, right? There's no other way to explain it, really. It kind of made me look back when I was getting high as to that drugs are kind of the counterfeit of that true fellowship that you have with believers and with God. You know what I mean? It fills that void. It gives you a temporary, very temporary, I might add, a feeling of being fulfilled, feeling satisfied, but that obviously goes away. But when it goes away, you're not left empty. It's kind of hard to explain. If empty is at a 0 and the drugs put you at a 10 feeling, when you're empty, when the drugs wear off or what have you, when you come down, you're not at a 0 anymore. You're not back to baseline. You're below baseline. It's not like you come off the drugs and you go back to neutrality. You go into a negative emotional state, and then you try to get back to where you were when you were feeling good and high, and the drug just doesn't take you back to that feeling you got the first couple times. It's lacking. And then after so many years of doing that, maybe even months for some people, you never get the high again. You just go back to 0. So you can imagine when you're coming down, or you've come off the drug, or you've come off the high and you're at a negative 10, and you do your drug and you're at a 0 now. And you're stuck in that perpetual deception of, if I could just get some drugs and do more drugs, I feel okay again, I feel great again. But in the meantime, when you were getting high and doing everything you could to find that drug, you were burning bridges with people in your life. You know what I mean? With your relationships and such. With your family, you're losing trust. Maybe they have given up on you, and, you had betrayed them because everything you're doing is to chase that drug. But see, when you're in fellowship with the Lord, whenever you're seeking more of Him, you're not burning bridges. You're not at the same time destroying your life while you're seeking the Lord. It's only fulfilling your life. It's only improving and enriching your life. The more you seek God, the more you get to know Him, the more you're in fellowship with other believers in one accord. Your life's being simultaneously enriched. It's the exact opposite with the drugs. While you're seeking that drug to fulfill that need, to fill that void, to feel that high again, which never comes, you're simultaneously destroying everything in your life. And some people come to the end of their rope and they go, you know what, I've been deceived by this drug. And what the drug is, it's a big tool of the enemy. It's a big tool of the devil to destroy your life, because it not only destroys your life, it destroys everyone who is a part of your life as well.
What makes you say that it's a tool of the devil?
For example, if you're getting high, all of a sudden you're confident. You're not really confident. You just feel you're confident, or you feel you're so smart and you're so brilliant, or you have these great ideas. Well, if you were so confident and so smart and filled with such brilliant ideas, why is the drug addict's life washing down the drain rapidly? Why is everyone around them disappointed in that person? Why is that person losing jobs, losing relationships, losing their life? You know what I mean? And it's just mind altering, and it turns you away from the true God, because some drugs, some psychedelics, you take them and you're deceived to the notion that your mind has been opened. You really feel that when you're high, that your mind is so open and you can understand everything now more clearly. You know, you have you have more knowledge of things. You have more insight to things, but it's the opposite. You don't have more insight. You're more clouded. You're more deceived. It's only when you come into a relationship with God and the Word cleanses you that you really start to see clearly and think clearly, because God's given you that spirit. You know what I mean? The sound mind. And the drugs don't do that. They fry your brain. I know it sounds passé to say that, but they fry your brain. Everything you think you're getting with that drug, you're not. You're getting the exact opposite. And when you come to God, and when you come to the Lord and accept Jesus as your Savior, you might not even know what you're getting, but at least after you've walked with God and He's been a part of your life, you're actually getting more than you could have ever thought or imagined. It wasn't until after I accepted Christ as my Savior and was in true fellowship with God and true fellowship with believers that I could look back on my life and compare the two lifestyles I had. One of a drug addict that only seeked pleasure for myself and didn't really care about anyone else, and my new life, which I was born again into, which was to please God, which was to live for God, which was to serve God by serving others. Only then could I really look back on my former life and go, wow, I was believing a lie. I was believing that being high and hanging out with drug addicts and doing things that drug addicts do, which is really nothing productive, that was a good thing, and that was eye-opening, and that was enlightening to me, when in reality I was being lied to and deceived the whole time by the enemy. If you look at the drug statistics now, one of the number one drugs, the biggest drug epidemic, is not even quote-unquote illegal drugs anymore. One of the most heavily abused drugs is pharmaceutical drugs, Oxycontin, and all those opiate-derived painkillers. They're not illegal. I mean, they're illegal for you unless you have a prescription, but they're manufactured and tested and marketed legally. They're legal drugs. And that is what more people are addicted to now. Even the youth where I live, here in Orange County, California. I mean, prescription drugs are an epidemic here. I was talking to a sheriff who's a friend of mine, and he was saying that we here, even in Orange County, we have so many drug overdoses on these opiates, prescription drugs. It's not talked about. It's kind of the underbelly of Orange County, you know. And then when they can't get the drugs, the opiates, because it looks like a pill. It is a pill, but it's highly addictive. It's basically heroin. So when they can't finagle to get the prescription illegally, they go straight to heroin. It used to sell marijuana as the gateway drug. There's no gateway now. There's no gate. It's just an open field. I can't get my Oxycontin, but I know a heroin dealer down the road, and I'll just get straight heroin. And kids are just getting hooked straight on heroin or opiate-derived pills.
Did you ever feel like you were, when on drugs, interacting with a darker spiritual realm?
All the time. When I was using drugs, which mainly was methamphetamine, speed, I'd be high. When you're, and if there's anyone out there who used meth or was addicted to meth, when I tell you about the shadow people, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. That's a very common term among meth users, the shadow people. Because you see shadow people everywhere, Jason. You see them outside your door, across the street, standing there. And if you walk, they kind of parallel you. You'll see shadow people sitting in trees. The hair on my arms are standing up right now.
Wow.
When you're driving your car, you'll see a shadow person right outside your car window with you. What else could that be? Okay, someone who might want to debunk that there is an unseen spiritual realm, they'll say, oh, you're obviously sleep deprived. I'll give you that much. Okay, you're obviously under the influence. I'll give you that. Your mind filtered. I'll give you that. When you know there is an unseen spiritual realm of wickedness and darkness that rules over this world, then you know and you can believe that. I mean, I would go outside in the backyard, I would be high, and I could sense that there just was demonic presence with me. The sad part is, for me anyways, you kind of just learn to accept it. You kind of brush it off. They don't necessarily attack you from your, perspective. You can't sense, oh, they're attacking me. You just sense that they're there. But in any drug addict's life, chaos is sure to follow. And that's what the enemy wants. He wants you not in fellowship with God. He wants you to not be in fellowship with anyone else. He wants you to worship the devil through the drugs, and his spirit realm is with you. So yeah, to answer your question, yeah, you could totally sense the demonic realm with you.
I know, it's the worst part of the show. But when this episode ends, there's a whole bunch more to listen to at talesoftherevolution.com. You can download any or all of the episodes right there. talesoftherevolution.com. And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, and anywhere you get your podcasts. And more Tales of the Revolution are coming, which means I need to hear your story. So reach out to me. Send me an email at our website, talesoftherevolution.com, down at the bottom, or just send me a note, jason@talesoftherevolution.com. Again, this episode is the first in a series on the topic of deception. I've decided to call this episode Crucial Deception. Until next time, don't be deceived and live the revolution.